it's recording. Okay, Dr. Ali Mishnah. Megillah Nikras, B'Yud Aleph, B'Yud Beis, B'Yud Gimel, B'Yud Daled, B'Yud Vav. Like Peichas Loyas, the Mishnah also says that the Megillah could be laid either the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th of Adar, not earlier than the 11th and not later than the 15th. So the Mishnah starts with the simplest case. The 15th is late. The cities that are walled from the times of Shur ben Nun laying on the 15th, and then the other dates are depending what's going on. Their initial date is the 14th. But sometimes the small cities that provide sustenance to the bigger cities throughout the year, they predate the Megillah laning to either Monday or Thursday, which is called Yom Mechnisa. They used to go in for the market. The Bezin was set up over there like that. So they were going into town anyway. They didn't want them to make an additional trip during the week. Ketzad. So how does the exact timeline work? It starts off with Monday. If Yud Dalet falls out on Monday, the unwalled cities, no matter the size, laying on the 14th, which is Monday, which is Yom Knisa anyway, so they don't. It's not a Terech Gedolah to come in. And then the walled cities lay on the 15th, which is there by on Tuesday. If the 14th is on Tuesday, or on Wednesday, then Kfar Makdim and the Yom. So that's the way that the Kfar lane either the 12th or the 13th, because they predate the Megillah laning instead of the 14th to either the 12th or 13th, which is Monday. And the big cities lane on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending, right? Or Tuesday or Wednesday on the Dalet, whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday. And then the walled cities late on the 15th, which is either Wednesday or Thursday. If the 14th falls out on Thursday, then the same thing. The same thing like Monday. Everyone, the unwalled cities laying on by Bayayim, which is the 14th, which is Friday, on the 15th. If the 14th is on Erev Shabbos, so now it's a little twist. If the 14th is Erev Shabbos, the small cities laying on Thursday, they go back one day. Now the walled cities have to get pushed up because they are not. We don't lay on Shabbos. There's two Xeris, but we don't lay on Shabbos. So the walled cities are going to have to predate to Friday. So if Yudah falls out on Shabbos, and so now all the unwalled cities, the big and the small, get pushed back to Thursday, because the Gemara is going to say that once you can't lean on your proper day, you just go back to the day that everyone else is doing it. For the large unwalled cities, and they go by Bayayim on their day, which is Sunday. That's when they were supposed to lean. Now, if the 14th falls out on Sunday, then Kfar Makdim L'Yom Mechnisa. Now this is the case of 11, because they go back all the way from Sunday to Thursday. That's the unwalled small cities. And the unwalled big cities laying on Sunday itself. They laying on Monday, which is the 15th. Fine. But the Gemara said this: Megillah Nikras B'Yud Aleph Minalan. How do you know that the Megillah is Nikras B'Yud Aleph? That can be Nikras all these days. In fact, the Gemara understands that this Minalan. Usually, the Gemara asks Minalan, like, you're teaching me like you have to do something. So you tell me you have to do something. How do you know? But the Gemara just wants. So there's no fear. We're only saying this as we're allowed to do it. But Minalan could come on. We said this later on in the Gemara. We allow the small cities to predate. So we're not saying a halacha you have to do it. So what's the question? This was the question. This all must have been the original gezerah. Why? If you're going to say that the original Gezerah by Achakaslo was only initiated Yudam Tezvav, also Rabban V'Aki to come to Kinu and Shekin Segdala, could a later Chachamim come and make up a Gezerah of, oh, we don't want you to come into, we don't want you to stop at the town twice, so lane earlier? That you know, that's now we learned. Ein Bezin Yachal Levatel Divrei Bezin Chavera. A Bezin cannot be Levatel another Gezerah of a Gezerah of another Bezin. Ela Im King Gadol Mimenu B'Chacham or B'Minyan. The only way they can be Mevatel or a previous Gezerah is if a Gezerah of another Bezin, if they have to be larger than them, and Gadol B'Chacham, which is not going to be the case with Amshkan Segdala. You're not going to have a bigger or smarter Bezdin with Amshkan Segdala. So it must be, the Gemara understood clearly that it was all originally instituted as part of the original Gezerah of Purim, Yud Aleph through Tesvav. So where's the remez in the Megillah that this is the case? It says in the pasuk in the Megillah, the time is Simei Purim Ha'ela Bizmaneim. So it's mashma, Zmaneim is a lashon hara. There's a lot of times. You don't say there's times of Pesach. There's a time of Pesach. It's one day. It's one Zman of Pesach, even though it's not one day, but it's one Zman. So what's Zmaneim? Zmanim Harbe Takinu Lam. It's mashma. There's a lot of Zmanim. There's multiple days. But this I need to, because there's to teach us the halacha of itself of the original Gezerah that says 14 and 15 that there's 2 days. In Kain Lema Kras Zman, let it just say Zman. Each, the Zman of Purim for each city. The Zman of Purim that like we established, 14 for one city and 15 for the other city. My Zmaneim. So it's mashma because it could have just said Zman. The drasha of Zmanehem, Zmanim Tuva. There's multiple Zmanim. But that's still not. It's still not punny. It's still not accessible, available for drasha. Why? Because we need to learn the katmi b'ayli zmanish hazel like zmanish hazel. When the Megillah says that the president lane on the 14th and the other cities lane on the 15th, maybe it's just like maybe they have an option. You could lane like the fourth. You could lane like one type of city, like the other type of city. So this Zman Ehem teaches you that at each Zman that is miyuchet for that city, it's not negotiable. Imkein lemakra Zmanam, you could still reference that idea of that each city has to each Zman is specific for that type of city with Zmanam. So my Zman Ehem Shamat Minakulu. So I have the whole thing. I could learn Sai that the original Gezerah, Sai that there's multiple, that Sai that each Zman for each city is lechud, and Sai that there's additional zmanim that were not specifically mentioned in the Megillah. Ema zmanehem, zmanim tuva. So maybe you saw from Mishchaydish, Ksar earlier. So why do you stop here at Aleph? So the Gemara says zmanehem dumyat zmanam. The riboy is going to be like the additional, like the original gezerah. Ma zmanam trey, just like the original gezerah is 2 days. Zmanehem trey. So what we're being marba is 2. Now really we're being marba 3, but the Gemara is going to address that in a second. But you have aim a trace of a place. So how do you know 11? So you have 12 and 13. That's your 2. You have 14 and 15 with the original. You're adding 2, 12 and 13, so that you're done. And the Gemara, to the Amr of Shmuel by Yitzchak, Yud Gimel Zman Kiyol Akalhi, V'loy Tzricha L'Rubuya. It's even without any drushes, I would know that you could land on the 13th because it was the day that everyone was at war. Now the unwalled city stopped the war on the 13th, and the Shushaniks got an extra day of the 14th. So the 13th was a zman of war for everyone. That's the ikr nesah, she says, and it's a dava pasha that I don't need, that I'm able to lane on that day. So I'm adding 2 days I have a rebate for 2 days. It must be 12 and 13. It must be 11 and 12. So over there, the Rabbi Yitzchak mentioned there'll be something else. We're going to bring it over here, so I don't need a rebate for this. So now who said 11 and 12? So go after Purim. Go after test. Go to Zion and Mid Zion. And the Gemara, it says in the pasuk, the pasuk says, I cannot pass the zman of Purim. So if I'm adding days to Purim, it must be Yud Aleph days. He has a different way of learning that the bonus days. Days. Then the Gemara is going to go through the same back and forth. But so maybe it's 12 and 13. How do you know 11? I don't need any drasha for the 13th, so it's automatically included. So if I have bonus, it's 11 and 12. So maybe it's also 16 and 17. Fine. So now the Gemara is going to ask why each one doesn't want to say it the other one. Why did he like this drasha of Mizraim? Why does he have to come into Yom Kiyamin? He doesn't like this whole drasha that he's learning out 3 different things and breaking up the word 3 different times. He doesn't like that. Reb Shimon, my time why does he not learn like Rav Shmuel ben Achmeni that it's Yom Kiyamim? Amalach Ahul Dairis said this Yom Kiyamim, this Kiyamim is talking about what they did with the Dairis. It's not coming to be married more days that year or during this time. It's coming to tell us that it's for generations. So it's not in this. It's not the sugi. This is the words. This whole drasha, this whole Yud Aleph through Tazvav only works according to Rabbi Kiva. Misad Darish Zman Zmanam Zmanem. You could only learn the Megillah in its time, 14 or 15. There's no additional days. We don't learn and we don't do any of this. We're going to ask a kasha on this halacha that Rabbi Yochanan said. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah in a brisa, I think it's a Mishnah. No, it's a brisa. When do we do this 14? When do we do this 11 through 15? When do we do the bonus days? That's only when we're in charge of Eretz Yisrael and we're running the calendar the way it's supposed to be. But since we look at Purim in order to calculate when Pesach is, you have to keep the dates straight, otherwise you're going to end up making Pesach early. If someone's going to stop it, they're going to hear that a town lane on Yud Aleph, the whole calendar is going to get panuch, and they're going to end up keeping Pesach a week early, and end up going to eat a chametz on Pesach because Pesach is going to end a week early. So that's not an option. So this is the kasha. Rabbi Yehuda Ali b'dman. This halacha of Rabbi Yehuda that says that we only do the Yud Aleph on a time in times of when Bezdin was when we were running Eretz Yisrael. Who's it going according to? Ilema Ali b'Rabbi Kiva. If you're going to say it's Rabbi Kiva, Afilu Zman Hazeh. Rabbi Kiva says his halacha in a blanket statement. He doesn't say he doesn't quantify it. That's only he doesn't qualify it only when we ran Eretz Yisrael. So even Bizman Hazeh, Rabbi Kiva holds to this. So that's not obviously it's not according to the Rabbi Yehuda says not like that. But you see, but when the Rabbanan said their halacha, they also said it in an absolute way. That means that even when we were running Eretz Yisrael, he didn't allow this, which is also not like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda makes an nafkamina between when we ran Eretz Yisrael and we didn't. And both Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanan say their halacha in absolute way. Rabbi Kiva says it's always done. Rabbi Rabbanan said it's always not done. So either way, it doesn't show like Rabbi Yehuda. You have to Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda that quote Rabbi Yehuda must be something's wrong. There's another way of learning this. Amar Rabbi Barachan Amar Rabbi Yochanan Zudav Rabbi Kiva Misai Avachacham Amru Bizman Hazeh Hoyel Mistaklin Ba Ein Koyin Oisay El Bizmana. He learned this halacha in Rabbi Yehuda, not in the Rabbanan. The Rabbi Yehuda, the Chacham say not in an absolute. The Chacham say that this thing that Rabbi Kiva said, that the Mishnah said you could do from Yud Aleph is only when we're running Eretz Yisrael. But in the Bizman Hazeh, we're not going to allow this. And I mean, we have a raya because it says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Emes Bizman Shana Mechetikna V'Yisrael Shurin Alad Masan Al Bizman Hazeh Hayom Mistaklim Ba. Since Bizman Hazeh, since we're looking at Megillah to figure out Zman Pesach in Karnas El Bizmana, then you could only do Bizmana, which is exactly what he said. The Chacham said. So according to this Ikad Amri, the Chacham and Rabbi Yehuda are the same shita. Rashi kashed Rabbi Yehuda. Rashi had a kasha from this Rabbi Yehuda in the Brisa to another Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. We're going to see in a second. Then he learned this mema that we just said that you could only do from Yud Aleph in a time when we're running Eretz Yisrael. That he said it's not Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yehuda. So he's asking like this. Harin Isa El Bismana. We learned in the Mishnah, Amosai, when do I allow this takana of the people predating the Megillah? Only in a small city that they actually go to the large cities to supply them with food, and they go in anyway. But in an area that they don't go into the larger town center, then they have to dafka do it on the 14th. There's no predating. So it's mashma. But the towns that do go to the larger towns, they are allowed to eat early. He doesn't differentiate in the Mishnah between Bizman Azeh and Bizman Yisrael. He doesn't make that affirmation. The only affirmation he makes is, do the small cities go to the big cities? So that doesn't stem with the other member of Yehuda. So he learned that this Bryce that says that the nafkamina is whether we're running at Yisrael is Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda, not Yehuda himself. You're going to switch around the author of advices because you have a question. You come with another answer, I'm sure. The Tani like Rabbi Yehuda, the Tani like Rabbi Yehuda. Originally, when Rashi was makabel of this brisa, he got it with two authors. He got it. We're not sure who said it, either Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yehuda himself. So once he had the stira of Rabbi Yehuda on Rabbi Yehuda, he found the Mishnah of Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah that did not work with the Rabbi Yehuda with this member of the brisa. Amar, he said, "Man the Tani la Rabbi Yehuda lav dafka." It's a misquote from. It's not Rabbi Yehuda himself. Man the Tani la Rabbi Yehuda dafka. It's specifically it's Rabbi Yehuda. That's what the Mishnah says. Anonymity. How do I know that that's the gather? Amarav, Damakra, Alkina Yehuda ma prazim hayeshu b'ariya prazim. With the prazim, so it's mash. So it says the Megillah says the end of, I think it's paraktas, that the Yidden in the prazim, which is the unwalled cities, they lane on the 14th. And the pasuk already said that there's two dates of 14 and 15. So it's mashma mid the prazim ba'arba'asa mukafim b'chamisha. Once you tell me that the prazim are on the 14th, obviously the mukafim are b'chamisha. Maybe the unwalled cities lay on the 14th, and the walled cities don't have to lay in Bechla. But the Gemara they're not Jews, they're not part of this. They're not part of this nace, not part of this mitzvah. They're all part of this xer. They're all going to get wiped out. The ema prazim ba'arbesa. So Gemara says that doesn't make sense. The ema prazim ba'arbesa mukafim ba'arbesa ubechamesa. Maybe they have to lay twice. And the Gemara, that doesn't work. Okay, the Gemara wants to bring a right to this. So the Gemara says that you see that there's a remez that they lay on that they lay on both days. The Gemara says now, without the s in between. I would say it's a right to what you're saying, that there are cities, or there's a reference to people laning twice. There's two completely separate dinim, the 14th din and the 15th din, two separate dinim. This S, the word S comes and separates. Fine. Maybe the 14th is dafka for the unwalled, but the walled guys could do whatever they want. They could do the 14th, they could do the 15th, doesn't matter. So this we already learned in Amalek. Amakra Bizman Nehem, Zman Shazar, Zman Shazar. The drush of Zman Nehem comes to tell us that everybody's time is their time, and they can't mess around with it. They can't pick and choose. And now maybe they have. Their day is not to the 15th, their day is the 13th. And when it says no, Shushan, it makes sense that it's like Shushan, because Shushan was a walled city, and you tell me that the 14th was the unwalled cities, so it makes sense that the walled cities are going to do like the other city that we're talking about, which is Shushan. So Ashkech on Asiya, this pasuk that's talking about this whole thing of that they're doing on the 14th and the 15th, all the pasukim that we just brought now was talking about the mitzvah of the party, the Asiya mitzvahs. Zechira, the mitzvah Megillah, Minollah. How do I see that? How do I know the Megillah? Maybe they had a whole different Kabbalah for Megillah. Maybe everyone did Megillah on the same day. Maybe all the drushes are off because I only have it by Asiya. And the Gemara, Amakra, V'hayamim ha'ela niskarim v'nasim. These days of Niskarim, which is references to the Megillah, the Nasa is the mitzvah Sayyim of Mishnah and Shalachmanis and Matan Savyanim. So we make a hakish iskish zechir la'asiyah. Whatever halachas, whatever ideas I'm going to apply from that I find in asiyah is going to be applied to zechira. That's the Mishnah Vaita. That's the more Vaita. Masnisin the loiki haitan. So the Mishnah that we said that goes after the walls that the cities that have a wall in the times of Yeshua ben Nun, that's the cutoff for to lean on the 15th. It's not like the following Tana. The Tanya of Yeshua ben Karchaimer, Krachin Hamukafim Chaima B'Mais Achashverosh. He says it's not after Yeshua ben Nun, it's after Shverosh. My time is Yeshua. Why? Where does he come from? Where is he coming from? Ki Shushan. Very simple. I want to compare it to Shushan. Ma Shushan Mukavas Chayma B'Mais Achashverosh. Requiring b'Chamisha Asa. Av Kol Mukavas Chayma B'Mais Achashverosh. Requiring b'Chamisha Asa. The Tana done, and our Mishnah, our Tana. Why does he have the follow like whatever was walled in during times of Yeshua ben Nun? My timer, Yolov Prazi. He has exer shova Prazi. Ksiv hacha arkena Yehudim Prazim. Now it's interesting because this word Prazim is unwalled cities after, but we're making a tzushta from the sugyas. Arkena Yehudim Prazim Ksiv hasam levad me'arya Prazi harbe. That what the Gemara is talking about, the pasuk is talking about all of the cities that they conquered. They said except for a bunch of walled cities. So just like Mala'alon, those walled cities that's referencing Mekhavas Chaima, B'Mais Yeshua ben Nun. Avkam Mekhavas Chaima, B'Mais Yeshua ben Nun. So that's his Joshua. So it's very understandable why Yeshua ben Karcha doesn't want to learn like our Mishnah, the less late Prazi. He does not have this Gezer Shava. Prazi has no way of getting to the cities. He has no way to get into the timeline of Yeshua ben Nun. Done my time, Yeshua ben Karcha. Well, how come our Mishnah doesn't want to say like Yeshua ben Karcha? Talking about my time, what's your question? The Ha Islay Prazi. He has his Gezer Shava, so that therefore he doesn't learn like our time. Like he doesn't learn like Yeshua ben Karcha. My time, the Islay Prazi. Shushan the other command. How does Shushan work? Because Shushan, like Prazi, like Mukafin, you don't. It's not like it wasn't walled in the time of Yeshua ben Nun, right? But you also, it says befeish that they didn't party like the unwalled cities at the time of the times of Achashverosh. So when did they leave? Some say that either Kedi is the name of an Amira or it was said around in the Spanish. Shani Shushan Halav Nasa Benes. Because Shushan, the Nace itself happened in Shushan, which is that they had an extra day to fight in Shushan. Because that was established, so the city of Shushan gets put into the sugya of walls that were surrounded in times of Yeshua ben Nun. So according now, the pasuk says Medina every year. The pasuk says Medina. So it separates certain cities and certain present. It was a certain Medina, certain Iran, right? So this time done Medina. I have to separate first. Not all walled cities are created equal. The walled cities that created time Yeshua ben Nun get to land on the 15th, and the walled cities that are the walled cities from the times of Achashverosh do not land on the 15th. And every year, Nami l'chalak bein Shushan v'Shar Yaris, and even within that subdivision, in that division, there's a subdivision. The Shushan is not like the rest of the cities in its time, and it gets put into the category of walled city from the time of Yeshua ben Nun. Elda Yeshua ben Karcha, but according to Yeshua ben Karcha, that doesn't have this distinction because he learns that everything's from the times of walled in times of Achashverosh. So you have Ben Shushan. In other words, anything like Shushan, anything that was walled in times of Achashverosh to all the other cities. Area and the Mayasa. What's enough? What are you saying about from the area? Yeshua ben Karcha, the time done Minicha. Given the Islay Prazi, Medina Lamali. Because he has Prazi, I don't need another pasuk to tell me that there's enough community between the walls of the city, the walls from the Shulban and the cities that were walled in times of Shulban and the cities that were walled in times of Achashverosh. So what are you going to tell me? Ella Kol Joshua Hu Dasa. There's another Joshua that these extra word that the double lashon is coming to tell you. Could there be Shua? Could there be Shua? Ben Levi, Udasad, Amar Bishur Ben Levi, Krach, we call it Samachlai, Bechol HaNera Imai, Nidan Kekrach. Any walled city, and you have this today in Yerushalayim, is a whole Nidan B'nai Brak, and how far it goes. But you have any city that's near a walled city, also lanes on the 15th. Ad Kama, Amar Rav Yirmiyav, Item Rav Chia, Barabba Kemechamsin Litzveria, Mil. From these two cities, Chamsin and Tveria, which is a Mil. The Lema Mil, just say Mil. What do you have to give me reference points? Amar of Hakamashalan, the Shir of the Mil, Kama Hava, Kamachamsin and Tveria. He wanted to also teach you not only the share of how close it has to be to this city, it also wants to tell you how big a Mil is. So now this is a completely different idea, and I'm not really sure where it comes into the Gemara, but let's go right there. And that's the end of letters, right? Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, and Chaf all have end of letters. It was established by the Nevi'im. So in other words, the way we understand right now, Moshe Rabbeinu brought down a Sefer Torah. They only had regular letters, and the Nevi'im added these end of letters to spice things up a little bit. But talking about Tisbra, it has the possible. But Ksiv Eila HaMitzvahs, and we learn out from there. She'ein Navi v'Shai l'Chadish Davar Me'atav. You cannot institute any new halachas as their rises. Obviously, we have a bunch of derabbanans, but they're in a separate category. And the letters which a Sefer Torah is written is not a derabbanan. It's a Torah itself. And furthermore, Ha'amar of Chizda Mem b'Samach Shabaluchais B'Neis Ha'Yandim. The mem, the endemem, and the samach, they were in the luchais. They were drilled. The luchais were drilled through and through. And part of the nace was that you could read it side to side on both sides. There wasn't reversed on the other side. There was one nace. But the fact that the middle of the samach and the middle of the mem were suspended in midair. So we see that the samach is a double pasha, but the mem, you see that it was already an endemem. In other words, the samach is not really relevant to what we're saying now. But the fact that we have a mem that has a complete circle around it, you see that endemem was already initiated, was part of the luchas. It wasn't initiated by the Nevi'im later on. And in Mahava Hava, B'nei Hava Amdim. And in Mahava Hava, V'lai Hava Yadei, they were already established. We didn't know Hai be'emtza teva or Hai be'zayfa teva. We didn't know if the mem, maybe a mem is supposed to be the regular mem is supposed to be at the end, and the end of the mem is supposed to be in the middle. The asut tzayfim and the Nevi'im came, but the kinu suchim be'emtza teva v'stumim be'zayfa teva. Gemara says that doesn't work because sayf eila hamitzvah she'ein navi asut l'chadish davar mi'ata. You cannot. That still transgresses this pasuk of eila hamitzvahs. That instituting where these letters should stand in the Ksav would transgress this would transgress this possible Eila Mitzvahs. Ella, Mar says no, that's not what it is. Shacham b'chazu v'yisadim. They were initiated. They were instituted originally by the Luchas. We also knew where they belonged in the structure of the word, but it was forgotten. And then the Tzayfim, the Nevi'im later came and reminded us. Now this connection over here is other things that were forgotten and reinstituted. This Tagum that we're supposed to say by Shai Mikra, that's Uncle Sagar. Ooh, don't tell me I don't have. That's awesome. I lost. I don't have. Oh, I'm back on. Yeah, internet. Okay. Uncle Sagar, Uncles Hager Amru. Amru Pir Elazar Bishua. Agam Shal Neviim Yonis Ben Azil Amru Pi Chagin Zechai Malachi. And when he started writing, Vinizdaza Eretz Yisrael Abrameus Parsa. So the Eretz Yisrael shook by 400 parsa, which we know is a lesson of Guzma. That the Eretz Yisrael shook. Yotz the Baskal of Amra. Kashbachu Yaltam from there's a Baskal that came out. Mi hu zeh shagilas sasarai the Bnei Adam. Who is this? Who is this that's revealing my secrets to mere mortals? Amar Yonasan ben Azil, Amar Yonasan ben Azil, Abagol Amar Anihu Shegilisi Sisarecha, the Bnei Adam. I'm the one who's doing this project. It's known before you. I didn't do this for my honor, for my father's honor, for my father's house honor. The psukim are more hidden, and there would be a lot of machlekes of what each pasuk meant. And so he wanted to be mefarish Nevi'im. But furthermore, bikesh legalas tagim shaksuvim, he wanted to be mefarish. He wanted to start explaining ksuvim. Enough. So for Gemara, my timer, what's the reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu drew a line by ksuvim and didn't allow him to do it? Because it sounded like he was masking to Nevi'im. So why is he not asking like ksuvim? The Gemara Mishum the Isbe Kates Mashiach. You're going to have over there. You have the Kates Mashiach, and if you're going to explain that, that's something that Baruch was on Megillah, like we know by Yaakov, we know by the sons. The Targum Shal Torah Uncle Sager Amar Amru v'Hamar Rav Ikka Bar Ave Amar Rav Chanan Rav. My diksiv vayikro b'sefer Torah Salikim mefurish v'sum seichel v'yavinu b'mikra. What's this pasuk mean? Vayikro b'sefer Torah Salikim zu mikra. Mefurish is that Targum. V'sum seichel elu ha'psukim. That's the breakup of the psukim where the psukim end and where the psukim end. The Mikra Elu Piske time. This is the chop. Ramila Elu Amasaris. This is the Nekutas. So the point is that you see that this pasuk is already referencing Uncles, Targum. So how could you say that he made it up or he came out with it from even from a Tana? The Gemara the same answer said before. Shacham v'chazu v'yastam. Okay. Thank you very much for joining. That's it from tomorrow night, same time.